Hello, and welcome to this Instance Wrangler demo. So Instance Wrangler is a add-on for Blender which makes it easier to deal with instances. Why would you work with instances? I think to be able to create an assembly of assets like this and still keep like a huge amount of flexibility. We're now looking at a combined mesh, so this is all just a single mesh, and it looks like this in the wireframe. But it is built from like reused instanced components. And the goal of this video is to show you a workflow where you can set up an assembly like this and then quickly and easily create a combined version of it, and also create different LODs of that combined version, which you can then easily export into various game engines. So right here, this is a merged mesh of 31,000 triangles. LOD 1 here is a cheaper version of that, which is only 7,500. So here, the reason this one is a bit more expensive is because, like, many of the objects have beveled edges, and here they don't. All right, let me hide those two things. So right here, what we have is that exact same structure, but then still built from separate components. And those are all instances. I can take any of these objects and like start to play around with it, and you can see that others are also affected because they share the same mesh data. And to make sure we're using the same vernacular, this is an object, and then what's inside of that object is a data block which uses mesh data. So if I look it up here, this thing is this is the object, and then when I open it up, we can see here this is the data block, which is a mesh. And this other one, they both use beam short right there. I really love working with instances because it makes it easy to keep really flexible. If there's an issue with a mesh, you can fix it in one place and it's fixed all over the place. And if you want to change the look of something, you can very easily do that too. So let's say, for example, we wanted to just create a little detail there. We could easily add it, and now that detail is part of all of the instances, the times is instanced as well. So and you would then like start to make sure things look unique enough by scaling and rotating. So transforms still help a lot to create unique looking assets, but you can in a very short manner of time create pretty complex looking objects from a relatively limited library of things. And so speaking of a library, that is something I have also set up. So here off to the side, we see all of the constituent parts that make up this construction right there. And so these are also all like instances, just the same as these here. I can take this one, start scaling it, and you'll see the linked objects, its duplicates, are also scaled along with it. So you might first start with the assembly, and you might like start modeling a single stair step, and then using Alt-D create copies of it. Or alternatively, let me undo that. Okay. Alternatively, you might have, started with a library and then built this assembly from it. I like having this library overview because it shows me clearly like what are the individual components and like any issues they might have. So it's a bit easier to focus on an individual part and like work on it like that. And the assembly also helps us to kind of test it in context. Now, looking at this as a library, there's a few issues with it. The first one that stands out to me is that it looks a little bit chaotic. So I would prefer things to be aligned a bit more neatly. So what we can do with Instance Wrangler is I can use multi-transform. And let's do this one by one. If I want everything at the same height, I can use the Z-axis position tweak, and we can set it just to 0, hit the set button. So I'll undo, redo. Some things are moving up, others are down, but now all the pivot points are set to 0 on the Z-axis. And then I might want to do the same for the red axis, or no, sorry, the green y-axis. I'm in local mode here. Let's go to global mode, and then we can see this. So these numbers, they are aligned to the global axis. So we want to also affect the y-axis, so I'll set it similarly. And now everything's oriented a bit more, like positioned a bit more neatly. I might then also want to move this to the back around there. So let's say that would be across the y-axis about 2 units or meters. And then let's do it that last bit by hand. So now this looks a bit more organized, and these also place here, holding down Control to snap. Not everything needs to be a super precise operation, but it is there when you need it. I also would want to check, like, if you're familiar with exporting assets into game engines, you know how important it is that everything has a scale and rotation value of, like, rotation 0 and scale 1. So let's test that real quick. So I can select all of these things, and for example, I'll reset this to 0. I can say set the rotation to 0, and I expected nothing to move, but we saw this rock moving. I'll undo it. So that one has an issue. And then with scale, well, again, the rock has an issue, and we also saw a plank there, and these ones are also having some issues. So that's some stuff we can fix. And like traditionally, when working with instances in Blender and you run into these transform issues, it would be kind of tricky to be able to fix them real quick. So looking at the rock, for example, we can see the rotation should be reading 0 across all axes, and 1 for the scale on all axes, but it obviously doesn't. So we can now close the multi-transfer portion and go into the instance management, and up here we see apply transforms. So we want to apply the transform for this rock. We want to set it to 1 and 0 for the scale. 0 for all rotation and 1 for all scale. So we want rotation and scale, apply transforms, and that's it. So we need to double check that our diorama assembly didn't change, and it didn't. And I know that these, like, visually, I am happy with where these are at. So like this one also had some scale issues, but I don't want this one. Like if I were to reset the scale, now it's set to 1, which is numerically what we want, but visually it's too small for my liking. So instead, what we will do is I'm now going to select everything. I'm going to apply the transforms, rotation and scale for all of these at the same time, and all of this stuff will also so it's going to work on all the instances at the same time, but visually you won't see anything change. So apply transforms. So 132 instances were adjusted as a result of this operation, and now we can see 0 and 1. So I can walk through this list and you'll see all of the numbers are correct and neat. If we would have tried to do that in vanilla Blender, you would have like hit Control A, apply, and then scale, and it's going to tell you, oh, it's not possible because multiple objects share the same data. Do you want to make it a single user and then apply the transforms? well, in that way you can apply the transforms, but then you would have lost the link with the other objects, making it an instance. So that's not ideal, because that's the whole point of working with instances. So, okay, we have reset the rotations, we've reset the scale. So this one, it's supposed to be linked to all of these platforms there as well, but it's not. Like as when you compare it with this one is linked, this one is not. That's an easy fix. So what we'll do is select one of these platforms. I'm gonna say select linked, and then it's gonna select all of the ones that share that same mesh data, if you remember. So again, I can open up. The mesh data is called platform.001, and if I open up another one, the object name is different, but the mesh data, the data block inside is the same one. Now if you look here, this one actually doesn't use the same mesh data as these two. So again, we're gonna fix that, select linked, and I'm gonna make this one the active one. And I'm gonna tell all of these to link selected. So it's gonna link that one. All right, well, you didn't see anything move, but now if I edit this one, we do actually see these change. So that's an easy, quick fix. And if you're familiar with working in Blender with instances, you might be wondering, like, how can it be that this has a different material from that one? Because typically the material gets stored in the data block and not on the object. It was always a frustration of mine that you could not have a different material on an instance of the same object, but it's something that Blender made possible, I don't know, like in one of the more recent versions. So if you select an object and you go to the material tab, right here, there's this little drop down which says it's linked, the material, it's linked to either the object or the data, and by default it's set to the data. But I changed it to be set to be linked to the object instead. And you can also see that if you look at these objects, and you can see there's a little material ball in line there, which just means that the material is attached to the object rather than the data block. So just something that might be handy for you to know. So we fixed all the scaling issues, we fixed all the rotation issues. Yes, not all the rotation issues actually. These, they didn't move when I reset the rotation, which you can also do by Alt-R, by the way. You don't need multi-transform for that. Similarly, Alt-S resets scale. Yeah, so these are not aligned the way that I want them. So like what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate them like this. This is the way I would want them to be aligned. But now if I reset the rotation, they're going to go back to that original position. So this is also a good example. Now I might want to apply the transforms like this. And again, if I wanted to apply the rotation, it's going to again tell me it's not possible. Well, with Instance Wrangler, it's not an issue. So I'm just going to apply the rotation, apply transform, and now that is fixed. So that's great. And we didn't see anything change in the assembly either, so that's good. You might notice that, like on the current assembly, you might have noticed that there's not those bevel which I mentioned earlier. And the reason for that is because most of the meshes here, they don't have any of the same modifiers that are on here. So if I wanted to resolve that, I can, for example, select the stair step in the library. And if we zoom in on it, it does have the bevel object. And actually, I might add the shade auto smooth, like to take care of that. There were some nasty hard edges there. So, and now what I can do is I can say modifier sync, and now you can see, undo that, redo that. Just for that object, it synced all the modifiers for all other instances of that one. And I can do that for all of these objects at the same time, of course. So we'll select them, say modifier sync. And now, yeah, it looked like we went from, excuse me, low definition to higher definition on this whole model. So yeah, that's cool. What we're working towards is to be able to swap all of the assets here, all of the models that make up this assembly, and I want to be able to switch all of them to different LOD levels, and then based on that we can create a merged copy. So to be able to do that, it's very important that we have all the naming correct, because to be able to swap from LOD 0 to LOD 1, the name needs to be correct because it bases which model to swap to on the name. So we want to make sure that in the library, to start with, everything's correct. So let's have a quick look here at the outliner. Well, this one already is called base, but I kind of want to call it base grass. Then this one, it's called temp. This is the base, and then we have base grass. These all look fine, except, oh yeah, here, cylinder. That needs to be called stove, because that's our little stove. We have, given all the objects the correct name, but what's equally as important is that we also give the data blocks the correct name, because if I open up, let's stick with stove, if I open up stove, you can see this, the mesh that makes up our stove is still called cylinder, and that should also be called stove. So what we'll do is I'm going to select all of these objects. I'll do just with the stove actually to start with. So we have the object name and we have the data block name, and what we want is to copy the object name to the data block name. So that's possible here. So copy name from the object to the data block. So this is the button that we want, and I hit it, and now this is also named stove. Of course, I can do that with a whole bunch of objects at the same time. I'll open these up. So we have cube and plane for these. So I'm just gonna hit that button again, and now these are also called base, and then base grass and base grass. And now we're going to look at the assembly instead of the library. So looking at the assembly, we can see that all of these components, they don't have those like names that we set up just a moment ago. Instead, they're all called object something. And like if we look, for example, at our little stove, object 105, but you can see the mesh data, the mesh data block is actually named correctly, because that is shared with this one right here. So what we're going to do first is I'm gonna select all of these objects. Oh, and I have these helpers set up, which I'm going to also just include in my selection, because sometimes you might have a setup similar to this. What I have is like the hut has a parent, this one, the rocks, has a parent, and then similar the stairs and the whole construction as well. So I'm just gonna blindly select everything. It doesn't matter, because empties, they don't have data blocks, so we can safely include them in the selection and disregard them. They're not going to have their name changed in any way. But okay, pay attention to this now. So what we're going to do is basically the inverse of what we did a moment ago. So we're going to take the name of the data block and name the object based on that. So instead of this button where we take the object name, move to the data block, we're going to take this button where we take the inverse data block name to the object. So I'm going to hit that now, and you saw this change. So like right now, this here is now called stove 001. Blender does that automatically. It puts the numbers behind objects in the scene if they have a duplicate name. But that will never happen with the data block names. So now all of these have proper names. and they also have and they're still instances. And precisely that, the fact that they were instances and that we were able to leverage the data block name made it able for us to also name all of these individual components correctly. The reason that it was important to have all of these names correct, well, the object names, they actually don't matter too much, to be honest, because we can safely ignore that. It's just like I'm OCD enough that like I appreciate just seeing the correct object names in the outliner. The thing that's actually important is that data block name, because we're going to use that to be able to switch all of these assets or all of these objects from like lot 0 to 1 and back. So to be able to do that, we need to now set up the LOD groups. So that would typically potentially be quite a bit of work, but with our tool, it's made a little bit easier. So let me look for a second. Here, I was looking for this. So in our library, I also have set up these two folders, LOD1, LOD0, and we have all of these objects right here. So these are basically our source objects. Let me just quickly create another collection, call it source. Yeah, I'm just going to move all this stuff into that folder. And now what I want to do is create simple copies of all of these, and these will become the new LOD0 objects. So these are not going to be instances, they're not going to be linked, because we want to be able to change the meshes from these source meshes. So what I'll do using advanced copy, I want to move the copies up by 5 units, and the collection, we want it to be LOD0. And so if I were to do this now, so let's try, we want an unlinked copy. So okay, we get what we want basically, and these are all separate objects, but the problem is that these are all named like .002, and that's not what we want. We want these to be named underscore LOD0. But like even with the batch rename tool, Control F2 in Blender, that's not that easy to quickly do. So I've created this name text field where you can say star, that refers to like says it needs to take the original name and then add underscore LOD0 at the end of it. And if you hover over this, you can read like the tooltip. So now let's try again. We want the target collection to be LOD0, that one over there, and unlinked copies. There we go. So now we have all of these objects correctly named LOD0, and well, of course, that's only part for the case for the parent. Excuse me, for the parent objects. So we still do need to use this trick here again. So copy name to the data block, and now these are also named correctly LOD0. So even though these tools, they make certain operations easier and quicker, you do still have to be aware and pay attention. I'm gonna move this down slightly, like let's see, I'll just do it like this, -2. We don't always need multi-transform, but it's there if you need it. So this will be our LOD0 group. To be able to make this LOD0, another thing that I need to do is, like, these are now no longer instanced objects. So these are simple unlinked copies. So no other users. And we can see that here as well. Usually when an object is used more than once, you can see right there, the base is used twice, there and there. This one is used only a single time, and that is the case for all of these. So what we want to do with all of these are LOD0 objects is we want to apply the modifiers because we don't want any procedural or parametric stuff to be on top of these. So I'm just going to say apply modifiers. Yeah. So you saw all of this stuff change there as well. Now what we can already do is select all of this stuff and okay, well, let's do it with a single object first and then we'll do it for all of them later. So right now, this object, door001, is using the mesh data block door. But of course, I wanted to use door LOD1. So what I can do is I can use cycle data. So if I click next, oh, it's now using door001. I would have to hit next a few more times to get to door LOD0. So to be able to make sure that we don't have all those extra ones in there, so we created some waste, some useless models in the meantime. Like that could have been a result of my testing in this scene as well. But we can see from this little 0 in front of them, they're not used anywhere. So I want to remove them, and that can be done through here. File, clean up, purge unused data. 3 curves, 44 meshes. Yes, let's get rid of them. So now then, what will happen is if I cycle data to the next, so now we actually go to LOD0. So I want to do that for all these objects. I don't want to refer to the source objects anymore. I want to refer to LOD1 for all of these. So select all of it, next. And it worked for most of it, except apparently the the base is having some issues. So let's see what's happening there. So base, and in the list. Okay. Ah, it changed to base grass there. And then there was another thing too that had some issues. All right, I'm gonna see if I can quickly figure out what to do about that. So the issue here is that base grass is alphabetically sorted before base LOD0. If names start similarly, like base, make sure the full names have the same amount of parts. So if one name is base grass, then the other should be base something as well, rather than just base. So we will go with base stone in this example. And then we need to make sure that's also the case here. And there we go. See if it works now. Yeah, okay, so that managed to resolve that issue. And I think for our chimney, that cost, yeah, okay. No, it actually looks like it should be okay. Oh, wait, I know what the issue is here. You know, it tries to, when you're cycling data, it only cycles the object types that are already there. So like what I need to do is I need to just link this one to the mesh there. Otherwise it's going to cycle to the only other curve object that's in the scene, because this is also a curve. So I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to say link selected. So now this one is also a mesh using our LOD0. Cool. That's something, by the way, that's only possible with Instance Wrangler, because usually you wouldn't be able to like link mesh data to a curve object, but with Instance Wrangler that is actually possible. All right, so like that small road bump out of the way, hopefully. Let's go to the next level, and still we're seeing some issue. Why is that? Oh yeah, okay, so that one we we want to not change. So, okay, so the only thing that's still going wrong for some reason is with the base here. Oh, because that one is also already set to the LOD. So okay, here we go. Then we deselect and we go to next. Now everything is as I hoped it would be, except we have some like these rocks are looking a little bit rockier than I originally wanted. So the reason for that is these still have their modifiers applied to them, whereas we don't want that anymore because they were applied here. So what I can do now is simply hit modifier sync, and there, that cleaned it up. Cool. The next thing I want to do is to show you that we're going to make the LOD1 group as well. And that will hopefully be a little bit smoother now that I know what road bumps to avoid. So let's say I want to, like, what coordinate is this one at again? This one is at 3. Okay, so we'll go to 6. Yeah. And we're going to call this LOD1. I'm still using the source group as a base. So we're targeting the collection LOD1. The name will be LOD1. And we're making unlinked copies. All right, cool. There we go. So now they're all called LOD1. The other thing we want to do is we want to remove the modifiers from all of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select one object that doesn't have any modifiers. Like this one, for example, or actually smooth about angle I think is fine to have for all of them. So let's just say I can use Control L, copy modifiers, or also here we have the Blender menus. We can say link transfer, copy modifiers. So having done that, now all of these objects have had their modifiers removed, meaning they don't have those beveled edges anymore, no more subdivisions and deformations. They're simply low poly models with all they have is the smooth by angle thing on them, which I'm also going to apply right now. So now these, yeah, these models could not be any more simple. And if we open this up, like, we do still need to make sure the names are correct. So I'm going to select everything and say to change the data block name. So now they're all called LOD1. Cool. So now we can go back. Well, before we do actually, let's first set up the combined LOD1 model. So we want to create a merged copy. And I'm going to say the name is like Cliff Hut LOD 0. And I'm going to move it on the x-axis, so XYZ, reset, let's say 5 units relatively to the right. And it can be a merged copy, but I need to do a few things to be specific. I'm going to Shift G children. Shift G just says select grouped, and then, like, based on this object I know which is the parent, I'm going to select all the children as well. And if I do that, let's say merge copy now. There we go. So this is our merged copy, and it looks exactly the same. All the modifiers are applied, and the pivot is perfectly positioned at the bottom because that was where the active object was when we created that merge copy. So the active object, even though it's an empty or a helper object, it might not even be included in the merged mesh, but it will be used as a reference for where the pivot will go. So like if I did that again, I can just select the whole thing. If I don't have an active object in there, it will still create the merged copy, but now we can see the pivot there being in the center. Another thing we can do, by the way, is if I just select this group, so I have this little thingy, a helper with these components underneath as children. So select children, merged copy, and now we just have this. So I could, if I wanted to, go down the construction like this as well, where we would kind of make it one by one. So in this case, I can still select this. I don't want everything else selected, but I do want this parent being active. And there we go. Now we have the same construction, but now it just consists out of 4 different objects instead of it being merged into a single one. So that's also a nice possibility. Going back, selecting everything, activating the base to be active, merged copy, and there we go. Now then, we want to select everything again. And what I want to do is make the LOD1 merged object. So if we open up the active, we can see it's all set to LOD0. I'm just going to hit cycle data next. It cycled it for 126 objects, and we can see the bevels are removed from all the objects. So this would be our LOD1 object. So I'm going to set this to 10. I'm just going to redo it so that we are doing it correctly. So let's think about where we want to put these. We could, for example, create a new group, which we will call export. And then here we will choose that group, export. And then I'm going to first set it to, well, we already have the thing set to be LOD1, so let's do that first. Set it, let's start with 5 and LOD0 at 5, merged copy. Once more, next, we still have the correct one selected, LOD1, merged copy. I'll move it off to the side for a bit. But now we actually have our 36,000 triangles model and our 7,300 triangles model. But yeah, there you go. So that allows us to create these models, and we can also, still go back in and make changes, add, remove, turn. Like if, for example, we wanted this little roof bit to look slightly different. Might want to scale some stuff. All right, yeah, I kind of like that. So, I will have to remove both of those, and I will have to check. I know I'm in LOD1 still, so okay, let's say LOD1, merged copy, and then previous LOD0, merged copy. And now we, pretty quickly have that updated version of both of these LODs created. Which, yes, just I think it's not a simple workflow, but once you get the hang of it, it actually, makes things more simple and more manageable than you would otherwise have in Blender working with, instances. And if at some point you're like, well, our LOD1, it's still too expensive, then it's actually not that difficult to go in and start making changes. And like we discussed, those changes, they will get propagated. Like if we go to the next model, set it to lot 1, and you can see now this one is cheaper than I had it set up before. Remove that lot 1, and we set this one to lot 1 again. Create the merge copy, and there we go. Well, anyways, I think I covered most of what I wanted to say. Took us long enough too, but you know, that's okay. It's a lot to go through, and it's not easy. The one last thing that I wanted to say is like this is an asset that I like, a model that I created like really quickly. So none of this has any UVs, and it certainly doesn't have light map UVs. And you know, if you're experienced with this stuff, you might have already figured that dealing with light map UVs in this way is still kind of difficult, because you know, all of these objects, they need to have the same layout for the light maps, but then also every time this object is used here, like for example this door, if you want the light maps to work well on this asset, then they need to in the first place be the same for every lot, but then different for every version of this model. So this door there and this door there, they would be right on top of each other in the light map UV. So they need to be the same for between the lots, but different between individual meshes. That is something that I think I have a solution for, but I'm still working on it, and that might be something that I will add to Instance Wrangler in a future version. All right, that is everything I wanted to show and tell about this particular workflow that you can use in combination with Instance Wrangler. I hope it's useful to someone out there. Let me know if you plan to use it for your own production pipeline, or if there are any things that you think I could improve on or improve the tool. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.